Hello, Dr. Grunwald. Your lecture on amphibian declines today was amazingly depressing. I think I know why academia has driven you slightly insane.
Yes, Susan. Welcome to my world.
However, while we know that over a third of amphibians are going extinct, you have not talked about why. I assume you will be discussing that in the next lecture. What is causing these declines?
Of course I will be. The problem is not a single cause, but many acting in concert. Many species are affected by multiple factors. Others are more susceptible to some than others. For example, habitat destruction does not bother cane toads. They can survive almost anywhere so long as there are large rain puddles. Wood frogs, though, need forested habitat and ponds in order to live and breed. If you turn that area into a housing development, those frogs are doomed.
I see. Well, what are some other causes?
Well, there is the obvious habitat destruction. In the US alone, over 50% of wetlands have been drained by agriculture, poor flood control policies, and urbanization. Urban sprawl has been destroying and isolating amphibian habitat. When a population is isolated, perturbations in climate and food availability can cause an isolated population to collapse. Roads are a barrier to dispersal, so the amphibians will never return to areas where they have become locally extirpated. So, the natural source and sink dynamic of a metapopulation is disrupted.
I remember that from your lecture on metapopulations. Each pond and its associated terrestrial habitat serves as a source for dispersers, or a population sink where the local populations may decline. This can't shift with annual conditions, and the stability of individual populations depends on migrants from other locations. If this is disrupted, given sufficient time, any population can become extirpated.
Yes. There is a reason why you are the only student worth spending time with out of 150 students. Most others look at the prefix, meta, in front of the word and panic. It is a shame you will be driven insane in graduate school, as I was. Another source of declines are the interactions between climate, invasive species, and Batrachitridium dendrobates, or BD. BD is a fungal pathogen that lives in the water column. It attacks the keratinized layer of amphibian skin and prevents gas exchange across the skin. Because most amphibians get significant portions of the oxygen they need through the skin, the pathogen slowly asphyxiates them, causing population collapses. It grows and reproduces at temperatures below 23 degrees centigrade. In the tropics, climate change has brought rainforests within their optimum growth range and extended it into much of the temperate zone, allowing it to attack amphibians without any natural immunity.
I read somewhere that it was native to Africa and got transferred everywhere on the African clawed frog Xenopus levis. Is that true?
Yes. Xenopus was used for a long time as a pregnancy test because it lays eggs when injected with the urine of pregnant women. It has also been a common lab animal for 200 years. When faster pregnancy tests were developed, idiot medical doctors and their lab technicians released thousands of these frogs all over the world, and they have become established well outside their native Africa and serve as the source for the disease. Several other invasive species are immune as well. For example, the American bullfrog, Lithobates catesbianus, is invasive everywhere because of its popularity as a source of frog legs. In addition to eating other frogs and competing with them for food, it is naturally resistant to BD, and most infections are not symptomatic. So, it can spread the disease. Climate change itself will also directly kill amphibians which cannot tolerate new climate conditions, and populations can suffer recruitment failure because their tadpoles can't escape ponds before they dry up.
What about other invasive species?
Trout, bullfrogs, salt cedar, cane toads. They are all species which cause amphibian declines through a variety of mechanisms. Trout both eat tadpoles in lakes they are stocked in, and serve as a secondary food source for amphibian predators like garter snakes. The population size of garter snakes becomes uncoupled from frog populations, and they can drive the frogs to extinction. The same for bullfrogs and others, but they are large enough to eat other frogs directly, compete with their tadpoles, and spread diseases like BD. There are a large number of other invasive species, and books can be found on the subject in the university library if you are interested.
What about those deformed frogs that showed up in the Midwest a few years ago? Frogs metamorphosing with 8 legs, deformed feet, etc.
That brings us to the other major cause of amphibian decline: pollution. Industrial and agricultural chemicals can affect amphibian populations in many ways. Nitrogen runoff from fertilizer was the cause of that one. There are nematode parasites that use predatory birds like herons as a host. The eggs are released in heron feces into the water where they hatch and parasitize snails. They reproduce asexually inside the snail and then emerge like the chest-bursting scene in Alien. The larvae parasitize tadpoles and cause them to develop limb malformations that make them easy prey for herons. The frogs get eaten, and the parasites reproduce sexually in the heron. Lather, rinse, repeat. Nitrogen fertilizer increases the algae population in the water, increasing the number of snails, which permits more of the parasites to mature and infect the frogs.
What about other pollutants like pesticides?
Don't even get me started on pesticides. I will discuss only 3. The herbicides Roundup and atrazine, and the insecticide Malarthon. Give me a moment to gather my thoughts.